Hello, and welcome back to Missed It by How Much. We're going through the second month analysis of the season, team by team, and we had just finished the Pittsburgh Pirates when we had some technical difficulties. I apologize for that. I was in the past video talking about how the two teams, the Mets and the Pirates, compare. The point I was trying to make was the Pirates may be slightly ahead in pitching if you favor Draybeck over Tudor, although they're Viola. Even though they're very close, you might give a slight edge to the pitching staff of the Pirates. It comes down to the lineups, whereas the Mets have a balanced one, versus the Pirates having three giants. So that'll be what I'll be watching for in the following games the rest of the season. If Bonds, Bonilla, and Van Slyke can out-hit the totality of the Mets lineup. And I was just saying my personal preference was for the Mets. I like a balanced lineup, kind of how I've configured the Dodgers. Okay, so moving on to the Philadelphia Phillies. They have a big three as well as the Pirates that have been performing great, and that's why they are 28 and 23. Their big three start with Lenny Dykstra, who I believe should get some MVP votes based on how he's playing this season. He has played in every game, and he's hitting .399. He's had a 30-game hitting streak, and he's currently has a 10-game hitting streak. He's very close to 400 this late in the season, which is impressive. He's got an OPS of 988, so he does have some home run power. He's about on track for his regular season number. Hits righties the best with an OPS of over 1.131. In terms of fielding, he's saved his team 5 runs playing center field. I don't know what else you can ask for from him to not be an MVP candidate. The other two big hitters on this team, Darren Daulton, the catcher, who is battling our Mike Scioscia for the All-Star nod, hitting .962 with an over a 3.300 average. There you see his numbers fielding-wise. He's saved his team 4 runs. So, excellent job there. The other big number for me is John Kruk. He's a little bit lower than what his regular season average was. For the Phillies, it looks as though Carmelo Martinez and Charlie Hayes have done better, performed better thus far in the season. For a while, Tom Herr was in the RBI lead, and he does have 40, which he'll easily surpass his real season. He was on the Mets most of the 1990 season and was a late season trade like Dale Murphy. That won't occur. They got Tom Herr for the whole season, and he has started just about every game and played well for them. Actually, I'm not confident in that statement. Maybe he played for the Mets at the end of the season. The Phillies may have traded him to the Mets. I'll have to look into that in the end of 1990. Either way, his picture shows Mets colors. I know he played with the Mets at some point. Von Hayes, a little below average. 718, average of 208, not good. Interesting there. Their team runs mostly through that top 3. That top of the lineup is very dangerous. Maybe not as good as the Pirates 3, and that's why they're behind. Terry Mulholland, who threw a no-hitter in the real regular season, is their best pitcher. He is currently 7-2 with an ERA of 2.77. Excellent job there. Jose De Jesus, has also pitched well. He's performing above average, definitely above what he did in the regular season. The rest of this pitching staff, oof. Don Carmen as a lefty has been okay. Roger McDowell has been adequate. He's their stopper, closer. He has 8 saves. Some of these other pitchers need to go to the minors. So that's where the Phillies stand. The Montreal Expos are an interesting team. They have some big names, but they haven't performed necessarily how you would expect them to. This is a team that has Larry Walker, Andres Galarraga, Tim Wallach, Tim Raines. So, Delino DeShields. Their pitching staff is led by Dennis Martinez, El Presidente. He's been great. He has only a 4-4 record, but in the area of 2.45, a whip below 1. He has pitched well. Oil Can Boyd's been okay. Mark Gardner's been excellent, but only a 2-4 record, which tells me hitting has not been there. The other 2 pitchers, Nabolts and Gross, have not been great. Tim Burke is their closer with 6 saves. He's done well. Some of these other guys have not. Delino DeShields been injured. I guess he'll be back in the next game. Delino is not performing up to his average. But he just doesn't have any power to justify hitting that high in the offense, the lineup. Spike Owens. I mean, Andres Galarraga has played just about every game. And I understand this is before he gets to Colorado to play for the Rockies, but he's below in home runs. His average is 30 points low. His slug is about more than 50 points below. Not hitting right-handers very well. Just not a great season for him. Dave Martinez has played well, but I imagine that is mostly against right-handers, and I am correct about that. Is he a real center fielder? Yeah, he's negative 2 runs and runs saved, so he's probably a corner outfielder, but he's playing center field. Larry Walker, I don't know if this is his first season or not, but it's early in his career. Not even performing up to the standards. Hitting righties fairly well. And he should overperform in home runs, but not the powerhouse he will become eventually. Maybe that's the problem. You got some guys here like Tim Wallach who are towards the end. Tim Raines as well. And then you got these younger guys, but they're not fully developed yet. Perhaps that's the problem why they're 5 games under. If you were trading players, Dennis Martinez would be a great deadline get if you needed a starting pitcher. But we don't do trades in this league, so that will not occur. Chicago Cubs are mainly led by their 2 big guns in home runs here, Andre Dawson and Ryan Sandberg. Each of them have 13 and 12 home runs respectively, and are 2nd and 3rd in the National League. Beyond that on offense, kind of slim pickings. Mark Grace is a good average hitter. He was up near 400 earlier in the season. He's dropped down to 333. Consistent first baseman. And then it's like average and below. Marvell Wynn only plays half the time. Dwight Smith, I would consider that below average. Luis Salazar starts most games. He's below average. Sean Dunston. Wow. Let's see how that compares. He's a full run, created 27 below where he was last in the real season, excuse me. His fielding was pretty good. But all these guys not performing in terms of hitters. So they're more like a big 2.5. Greg Maddux is pitching well. Almost a full run lower in his ERA. Has a winning record at 6-5. And Mike Harkey is pretty good. Sean Bosky, who pitched really well against the Dodgers one time and then poorly another, is got an ERA of 4.66, which is kind of surprising to me. He has great stuff, but he has a 3-game losing streak. When his game log loads, we'll see how bad did he pitch. Oh yeah, terrible. One of those was against us. So he struggled. He started off pretty well in April, a 3 ERA, 3.04 in 4 games, and he won 3 of them. Bullpen Steve Wilson. He's not a full-time starter though. It's a good ERA. Ooh, some of these ERAs are just out of control. Nunez has not pitched very often, but he has done well. Yeah, that's a recipe for disaster when you don't have very many pitchers, and they don't. St. Louis has a pitcher, a really good one. His name's John Tudor. He's got an ERA of 1.36. And I know that he could throw shutouts. He had a scoreless inning streak at some point before it was broken. And he's about as good a starting pitcher as you can find this season. Unfortunately, he's not completely alone, but he is an exception to the rule. An ERA of 1.36, a whip at .908, and he's only 4-3. He has pitched well. 10 out of 11 starts have been quality. Wow. The Dodgers could use a pitcher like him. In fact, he has a Dodger uniform on in this picture, but he's not our pitcher. In the picture, he's our pitcher, but in the game, he's not. He's been excellent. Tewksbury's been on and off. We faced him. McGrain has not been good. Brent Smith, that's pretty good. But his record's only 3-2. The bullpen is the problem, even more than the starting pitchers. DePino, Terry, Niedenfuer. I mean, those are not good numbers. In terms of hitting, not a lot. This is the year that Willie McGee won the batting average race against Eddie Murray, even though he got traded to the Oakland A's and was frozen. He's hitting about the same. Now, this number isn't his combined stats from Oakland and St. Louis. I think on the stats that he hit with the Cardinals, he hit .335 that won it, just by a few points over Eddie Murray. He's playing well. He's not playing every day, though. I don't understand. I wonder if that's because of usage again. He got traded. He's on pace for 66%. When he does hit, he's hitting better against lefties than righties. Nothing super impressive. Fielding-wise, he's a 3 in runs saved in center field, which is good. There are weird lineups in St. Louis. Some players, like Ozzie Smith and Pedro Guerrero, only play some of the time. Well, they're not performing well, though. I believe this was the year that Pedro Guerrero had 31 doubles. And he's on pace to beat that, actually. But an average of 220. See his usage. He's about right on. Again, I'm trying to set this up so they can play players as much as they want, but somehow the computer just does not want to do it at a huge level. Regardless of how often they're playing, Terry Pendleton, Pedro Guerrero, Jose Oquendo, Ozzie Smith, all names you know, Tom Pagnozzi, not playing up to where you would think they would play. Let's see Pendleton's numbers for they're about on. Towards the end of his career. Milt Thompson is playing a lot, and he's playing better, but that's not even what I would consider average. Vince Coleman steals 25 bases. Great. 708 OPS. So as bad as their situation is in the bullpen, and it's pretty bad, and probably half their staff, their starting staff, are close to it, their hitting is worse. They're not going to pull out of there in the basement. So that's the National League East. Next up, we'll go to the National League West, which is led by the San Francisco Giants. They have led the league in batting, 276 average, and they have had some above average performances from leading the way, Kevin Mitchell, who is currently the league leader for MVP. He's outperformed in average by 48 points. His OPS is over 1. So we'll see if that continues or if he comes down. He started out in April at 346. He's currently in June hitting 381. So he's on pace to eclipse his home runs 48 to 35. We'll see if that continues. But he is definitely the big cog in this lineup. Mike Kingery is also playing almost every day and hitting .406. He's almost doubled his RC27. He is just, he's even hitting lefties. So, better than he is hitting righties. Amazing. Limited at bats. Probably that's why he's not yet qualified for the batting average race. Been great, though. We'll see if that continues for Kingery. Will is playing about like Will Clark baseball. Excellent. Pretty consistent. Let's look at fielding. His current 10-game hitting streak, he's excellent all the way around. Will the thrill. Brett Butler showing a little bit more oomph in the home runs. He's already surpassed his whole season, a third of the way through. 309 average is right on pace. And outfield, excellent. No runs saved, but 9 great plays, only 4 poor ones, 1 error thus far. Playing every day. Terry Kennedy, that's about average. Matt Williams, I would imagine, is a little below average for him. He's one of the few starters that's not playing up to his normal capabilities. We'll see if that improves. Still not a negative in the field. Rest of these guys are role players. One guy who is not listed on here, I guess he got injured, is Dave. Oh, he's inactive. I guess this is because he's played too much. Dave Anderson hitting .404. He did that in 60 games. He hit .350. So he's really outperforming that even. Which .350 is pretty good for his career. He's probably a 200 hitter. Around that. He's done very well. And fielding-wise, playing shortstop, a difficult position. Not horrible. Even in -2 run saved. And again, I'm allowing these guys to play whoever they want, whenever they want. Just out of curiosity, go back and see what's his usage. 342%. So, again, I don't have a problem with that. Kingery, what's his usage at? 154%. I wish the computer would use them more often. This is the place where I thought the Giants in the real season failed. And that was their starting pitching. They've improved on it here. Here's John Burkett. He's getting support though, right? 3.46 isn't huge, but he's outperforming pitching-wise. Mike no-hitter Lacoste. In his game logs, let's see. Show you that. He did pitch 8 innings and gave up 0 hits. Yes, a run scored. But I still feel like he deserves credit. He got combined with Atlee Hammaker. He's pitching ahead of projections with a 3.38 ERA. Rick Russell, not very good. Scott Garrelt's not. Don Robinson. So, they're winning by hitting. And the bullpen doesn't look super either. Jeff Brantley, their closer, pitching well. They're being carried by their bats. There's a couple good starters. Atlee Hammaker came in for the ninth with this huge ERA, but he got the 3 outs. He kept the no-hitter intact. So the Giants are a good team. They're balanced. I'm going to skip the Dodgers for just a second and look at Cincinnati. We played both of them. And I really think Cincinnati is better. I think Mitchell is pretty much carrying them, but he's overperforming. Whereas I think some of the Reds players are not, and they're still in it. I think this is a 3-team race in the West. And Cincinnati has just as good players, just not, they're not performing yet. One guy who is performing for the Reds is Jose Rijo. He shut us out for 7 innings in LA. He's got a 2.49 ERA, he's 7-2. He gave up only 2 runs to the Giants in 7 innings. I think he's the ace. He has a 7-game winning streak. Look at these numbers. He's even outperforming pretty much what he did in the regular season. Some of these other pitchers have not performed for the Reds. Jack Armstrong, Tom Browning. We beat both of those guys. Thank goodness we saw them in the series in LA. Danny Jackson just came off the injured list, so we'll see how he performs since then. Norm Charlton, that's really high. He was a swingman in this season. He started 16 games. He's only done 2 so far. His ERA is a 4.70 versus a 2.74, which is strange. There's room for improvement. That's what I'm saying. With the Giants, I don't think there's much more room. Myers has been awesome. Rob Dibble could even improve, I feel like. Let's see what his ERA was. 1.74, and it's currently a 3.41. See, that's what I'm afraid of. The Reds are hanging around, and they'll probably get better. The rest of this bullpen, not good. Look at their hitters. Benzinger was hurt. He's back, but he doesn't play very often. Hal Morris has been doing well. Jeff Reed, 305 average for a catcher is pretty good. Yeah, Paul O'Neill, I mean, again, injured. Eric Davis, I mean, 710 OPS. That can only improve. Glenn Braggs, 707. I mean, this wasn't Eric Davis's best year, but Glenn Braggs, he's underperforming. Eric Davis is underperforming. He has an 833 OPS. He's only at 710. Chris Sabo? 819 OPS, only 636. These guys have not played up to their capabilities, which scares me some. Barry Larkin, 614 OPS. This team is going to improve over time. Let's see if there's any important injuries. Herm Winningham, who wasn't playing great, underperforming as well. So the good news is the Reds have underperformed. The bad news is they're only 2.5 games out, and they're probably going to get a lot better. So that's very scary to me. You've got one team, San Francisco, who seems like they're overperforming and they're ahead. But usually over a season, things work themselves out and they're going to come back. Houston is at 500. They've had a lot of injuries. Glenn Davis is currently out. He hasn't performed. He has the 9 home runs, but that's about it. Franklin Stubbs started off really hot and about where he should be, 250. Bill Doran was over 400 hitting, and he's still at 315. 6 home runs, OPS at 923. I'd say he's their best player. And then after Casey Kendall, who doesn't play every game, but he plays most of them. This is a huge drop-off. Look at these numbers. I mean, I don't understand how you can win with 600 OPS, 577. Wow. So hitting is really rough for them. Mike Scott's not played well. 4.07 ERA. I mean, not one of his better seasons, but he's underperforming. Danny Darwin is not underperforming. He has a 1.87 ERA, which is even better than his 2.21 in the real season. His whip's under 1. Yet he's only 3-4, and that's because they can't hit. He has pitched in relief. Look at that, 0.75 ERA. He's an excellent pitcher. Portugal's pitching well for them. Let's see how that is compared to his real life. Even better. He's performing better than. Gullikson is not good. Deshay is not good. They have some nice names in the bullpen. Augusto, Larry Anderson, who had an excellent ERA. And he was the man who was traded to the Red Sox in the end of this season to get a certain first baseman back that had a Hall of Fame career. He's pitching a little bit under what he did that season, but not going to do much when you can't hit. Dave Smith is pitching even better and leads the league in saves with 12, and he'll easily eclipse the 23 if he stays healthy that he had in the regular season. Bullpen's pretty good. If you could ever get to them with a lead, you'd probably be above 500. Given that lineup, it's kind of amazing they are 27 and 27. To be honest, that's really poor play. Speaking of poor play, the Atlanta Braves started off really poor, but have been moving their way up. They've won 6 in a row, I believe. They just won 3 out of 4 in San Diego, and then they swept the Dodgers. So one of the things that hurt them early on was they lost David Justice to injury. He's back. He's got 11 home runs and a 945 OPS, joined by Ron Gant, who's been great the whole season, hitting 317 with 11 home runs and 35 RBI. Let's look at how that compares to their real stats. A little underperforming for Justice in terms of average. I don't know if this was his first year or not, but early in his career. Ron Gant, 317 average, right on dot of OPS. Let's see what his fielding's like. Okay. He probably should be a corner outfielder, but he can hit. He can pitch in lineup. Lonnie Smith, who really rearranged some of the Dodgers pitching, had a great season for them. I always think of him as either Cardinal or play for the Royals. I don't even remember him. Let's see how he's doing fielding. He's an excellent pickup. He's playing great at age 35. Limited action. Francisco Cabrera is playing well. Jeff Blauser is probably an all-star at shortstop. And then not much. Pitching-wise, they got the young guys, Smoltz. Glavin's not who we will see. Lee Brandt beat us with a 5 ERA. Pete Smith. Marty Clary. These are not good names. Not well known. But look at the bullpen, not bad. Joe Hesketh. Steve Avery's in there. He's not pitching great, but a name you know. Yeah, I would imagine if I went back and looked really closely, they probably blew a lot of games late. They're not where they're going to be, but one of the reasons we want to keep players like Dale Murphy where they belong, like in Atlanta, and not trade him away is because he deserves to end his career there, I think, and watch these young guys develop. I don't like this, ship them off for parts at the end of their career. San Diego Padres have fallen into last place in the West. They have a decent lineup, and they've had some great pitching performances by Ed Whitson and Bruce Hurst. 2 aces here. Drops off a bit beyond that. Andy Benes, Dennis Rasmussen, who beat us early in the season, has really fallen on hard times. Calvin Schiraldi. Do you have some bullpen arms? Lefferts and Harris are good. Eric Schau has been, I guess, banished to the bullpen. I guess Lefferts is your closer. Interesting here, Andy Benes just threw a one-hitter. I'd like to see that game log really quick. Yeah, he has one hitter. Did throw a shutout, 12 Ks. Excellent outing there. You can't expect your whole rotation to be great. So let's take a look at the batters. Jack Clark, who has not played every game, he was benched at the beginning for another Clark, Gerald Clark, who's now inactive. Tony Gwynn just got injured, unfortunately. He had been hitting .338, which is probably above what he did. This is one of his better seasons average-wise, .309. Outperforming that. That seems to be the only big injury. So I say the demarcation line's probably here around Benito. Bip Roberts was hitting really great early in the season, now down to .303. Joey Coors barely played. Mark Parent is not a full-time starter. And Jack Clark has done well, 9 home runs, 17 RBI. Below that, Joe Carter, the center fielder, this is before he became World Series champion, MVP. Better than he did in the real season, but not good. Not unlocked yet. And then the rest of this lineup. Ooh, Pagliarulo, Fred Lynn. How old is Fred Lynn? 38. Probably outperforming, but I mean, what did he normally get? Roberto Alomar only hitting 255 seems strange to me. Yeah, he's really almost 100 points lower in his OPS from the real season. Gary Templeton was hitting great early in the season. Now he's at a 585 OPS. So this looks very much reminiscent of the Astros. A couple good pitchers. Astros probably have a better bullpen. Lineups are, you got a couple good hitters in there. Get past those guys, and it's easy breezy. So that leaves us to the Dodgers. We left them for last. Started off 18-9 in the first sixth of the season. Have gone 3 games under 500 in the second sixth of the season, including last 3 in a row. Lost to the Atlanta Braves. Also, split the series with the Reds and lost the last game against Pittsburgh in the 8-game road trip. That means they've won a total of 2 out of their last 8 games. 2-6. So that really bad stretch at the end after having 20 games in 20 days kind of colors this. They had been playing decently. Cal Daniels has cooled off a lot. May, he barely hit under 300 after hitting 365 in April. In June, 235. So we'll have to see. And he is horrible in the field. -2 runs saved. Eddie Murray, consistently hitting, but not this month. The first third of it, only 261. Actually, -1 in run saved. So he's cooled off too, which might have something to do with the losing of 6 out of 8. Mike Scioscia, performing on an all-star level, well above his OPS for real. Hitting right-handers, especially well, 956 OPS. Fielding's a little below average. Kirk Gibson, a welcome surprise. Started off the season on the bench. Hitting 777. Not a lot of home runs, although he's expected to surpass his real numbers. We'll see how long he plays. His usage is 154%. His durability is only a 5, so we'll see. According to the rule book, he'll miss a quarter of the season. Not great in center field, but not so bad that I'm worried about him. Mike Sharperson, about right on where he's supposed to be. Plays all over the infield, poorly at all positions, especially shortstop. Still would rather have him playing. Oh, one other thing I wanted to look at there was his usage. 169. Not outrageous. Rather have him than Alfredo Griffin. Stan Javier, who, when I started the season with him, I thought, this guy's going to be, he looks pretty close to the same on both sides of the plate. This guy's going to start every game for me. And he's going to play in center field. He's been horrible in center field. He's been mostly a right fielder. Sometimes he plays a little left. And he's been terrible against left-handers. Just horrible. And 49 at-bats is not a tiny sample size. He's underperformed. There's no way 2 ways about it. I'm really disappointed. I thought I was going to win that trade getting Javier for Willie Randolph. And I wish I had Randolph, to be honest. But you get the cards that are dealt to you. And the one important one that was a wild card positively has been Jose Vizcaino. I thought I'd have him on there just as a backup for Sharperson playing shortstop. And he has outperformed. Look at this average. Again, I expect him to come down. But he's got a 702 OPS, a 4.3 runs created 27. Cooking against lefties. Look at these numbers. These look like power numbers. 386 on a base of 455, a slug of 386 for an OPS of 841 against left-handers. Impressive. Fielding-wise, not elite, but average. And that's good enough for me. His usage rate is going to be 829%. And this guy's going to play as long, again, durability only a 4, so I have to sub for him quite a bit. But definitely impressed with his work. Lenny Harris has played a little bit below average, what I expected. Fielding-wise, been disappointed. He'll probably end up at third. And Sharperson will probably end up at second. Been injured, that's why he's right around 100%. Rick Dempsey, Jose Gonzalez, Juan Samuel has been a huge disappointment. I tried to keep him off the field as much as possible, but due to injuries, I've had to play him. He's a horrible fielder. I actually have him under 100% of where he really played, but I'd like it even lower than that. Hubie Brooks has been a disappointment. I tried to limit him as well. Pitching-wise, I'm really disappointed. I thought Ramon Martinez was an ace. He has not performed like that. There's nothing else to say. Mike Morgan underperformed, not by a lot. Kind of expected this, up and down. Tim Belcher actually performing about where I thought. You get good starts and you get really horrible starts. Mike Hartley's been moved into the regular rotation. He pitched great to start off with. He's still excellent. His last 2 games stunk. And here's what I've talked about before with the 5 runs. I can try to get you out of the game in the 5th. I can try to get you out of the game even in the 4th. You give up runs in the 1st, 2nd, 3rd innings, I got nowhere to go. I need you to perform and make me take you out because you're starting to lose it. You cannot lose it right off the bat. Mike Hartley's been a disappointment. I was trying to use him more. He's been injured. He's on pace for 174 if he can stay healthy. Tim Cruz has been really good. He had a bit of a dip as a blown save. His ERA is a little high based on a couple bad outings. Trust him probably the most of anybody in the bullpen. Fernando's been horrible. Pitching-wise, batting-wise, he's been pretty good. About what I expected. Actually, probably not as much because I don't use pinch hitters enough. John Wetland's responded. Didn't really expect much for him. Way too many walks. See if he can develop into something decent. Jay Howell's been blown a couple saves. Then he came back. Limited basis. Can I use him? I don't trust him as much as Cruz. Gott has pitched better. He started off horrible. We'll see if that continues. 2 lefties have been great. Problem is, pitch them and you lose them. I can't do back-to-back outings with him. Darren Holmes has been good. Only against right-handers. He's a right-handers only pitcher. I'd like to say I'm disappointed in this team, but I think it's about where it's supposed to be right now. Going to have to look into splitting time in right field between maybe Jose Gonzalez and Stan Javier. Would love to get Juan Samuel off the field, except against lefties. One last thing before I end this video. I would really, I've always heard before the season started, you need to set the settings so that pitchers have to be pulled after 5 runs, starting pitchers, and relievers after 1. Otherwise, the game will not police itself correctly. I've seen that screw up bullpens, rotations by setting. I saw Boston blow a game because one guy had a bad start in the first inning, got yanked, and it messed up their pitching staff for almost a week because everybody was tired. Sometimes you have to bite the bullet and let your starting pitcher get trounced just to save the bullpen and the rotation, because you can't keep pitching guys. So I'm going to go back in there and probably change that setting. I don't think it's fair to the computer to make it either pitch guys beyond where their rest is or pulling up worse guys from the minors that don't belong on the roster just to fill in innings. That's where we're at. 2 months in, or 1/3 of the season. Thanks for being patient and listening to me. Next time we'll have a game on Missed It by How Much.